Reyes, yeah.
And he's not talking shit about Dominic Reyes right now, who could come back out and give him a good fight. And he had a great career. Let him be retired and be Daniel Cormier. And John Jones, you need to sell your next fight.
Yeah. See, and that's what's interesting to me is that Jones is still active in the UFC. He still has plenty of fighters that he could pay attention to. Mm-hmm. DC's done. He's done. He's made it.
DC is not going to come out of retirement to fight you again.
No, because
even at heavyweight, I don't think.
Risk versus reward. It makes no sense at all. For one, Cormier is a lot older than John Jones. When I look at this rivalry, it just proves to me how childish John Jones is. You beat him twice. You beat him twice. What else do you have to prove?
Nothing.
You dominated him the first time. The second fight was a lot closer. I think if they did
caught him with that kick. But fighting is a game of mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And Cormier made a mistake and he lost.
Yeah.
And that's what, Stipe made a mistake when he fought Cormier and he lost.
Yes.
And then he came back. And knocked Cormier out, and then he won by decision. Right?
Yeah,
the third fight.
I think the third one.
I'm trying to remember it.
Yeah,
it was by decision, but Stipe pretty much dominated.
Right.
So Cormier's career was awesome, and everybody loves the guy. Why are you picking on a guy everybody loves?
And that's
the wrong guy.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're gonna play heel, play heel.
But you're saying he deleted that tweet. He tweeted that, and then he deleted it.
Deleted it, and of course
somebody got to him.
Right, and that's the thing. For one, there was a time, and I hate to be blunt, there was a time where somebody needed to take John Jones's car away. You hit a drunk woman, or you were drunk, you hit a woman, and then you grabbed
Wasn't she pregnant too, or something?
She was pregnant. And
Not that he knew that when he hit her.
Well, and it's very similar to the Mike Perry situation. We just talked about this, where you wonder how much CTE is playing into effect, or how much even mental illness plays into effect with these guys outside of the octagon. You look at John Jones, and it just seems he's got a record of 26-1. Why are you worrying about somebody you beat twice? Yeah. Who's retired? Who's now commentating? And when he commentates, he does a great job. Daniel's one of my favorite real commentators. Mm-hmm. There's no chance that you're going to fight him. You're 10 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, 10 by... You have a great record. Why not put that attention towards Curtis Blades, Francis Ngannou, Derek Lewis? These fighters that are in the heavyweight division.
Please
that are
talk
ready.
that shit to Francis Ngannou. Please.
Oh, I would love it. I think with the way...
Get that started.
Yeah, with the way that the heavyweight division goes, as it stands right now, there is no better contender for a title shot and who deserves another chance like Francis Ngannou against Stipe. So we know that with the way that Dana White is talking, that fight is already booked. It just needs to be set in place.
Right.
Stipe versus Francis too. Mm-hmm. So you look at John Jones and who he could fight. There's a long list. There's a lot of fighters that he could fight right now in the heavyweight division. You've got Curtis Blades. You've got Derek Lewis. To me, you've got Rosenstruck as well, who that to me I think would be the best test for Jones, because sure, he got starched out by Francis Ngannou fairly easily. That was a 20-second knockout, but to me that's the fight that you should be worried about instead of chasing a person who's retired and living a happy life.
I agree. I'm not going to argue with you on this one at all.
Speaking of Jones, how do you think he fares in the heavyweight division?
So it's going to be interesting because he's been a guy he's very slender, right?
Yeah.
He's got tiny legs.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see a guy like a Derek Lewis or just one of these bigger guys lean against him against the cage and see what he can do. It's going to be fascinating. I'm sure his skill is top notch, so he's going to land those kicks from distances, and he's going to be able to strike from distance. But when one of those guys gets him pushed up against the cage, even a big, strong guy like Francis Ngannou, who, seems super powerful, you saw what happened when Stipe fought him and pushed him against the cage. Francis couldn't do anything and was exhausted after the first round. So
that's one of the best points, I think. You made a great point there in the sense that we've never really witnessed John Jones be bullied. We've never...
Closest was Cormier, probably.
Yeah. And when you look at Jones's history for all intents and purposes, he really is 26-0. He had that Matt Hamill fight where he did the down. He's one of the greatest of all time, but you have to take into effect that he did have some PED violations and everything like that. And, whether it was an error on USADA's part or whether it was that he did it long enough until he got caught, he is one of the greatest of all time. But
I would love to see them give him Greg Hardy for his first heavyweight fight, because that would test his power against a big, huge, powerful guy.
Yeah.
And it could also serve another purpose, ending Greg Hardy.
I love that. Bravo just came up with the best idea ever.
It would just put an end to Greg Hardy.
I am the biggest Greg Hardy hater ever. And at 7-4, I think his record is now.
Yeah, he becomes irrelevant.
He becomes irrelevant with a Jones win. I mean, you could always go back and say, well, where's John Jones and this and that. I think that when you look at the UFC, and I'm gonna look up the rankings right now because I do have a good idea of the top 5.
In the heavyweight division?
In the heavyweight, but let's look further down in the top 10. I mean, when you look at, the division, you've got Stipe as the champion.
Who's 3 right now? Who's 3?
Number 3 is Rosenstruck.
Yep.
Then you have Derek Lewis. Here's my pick.
It gets shaky after that because even Derek Lewis at 4 seems like a guy that's never going to be a 1.
Right. Here's who I say you put him up against when we're looking at the top 10 in the division for heavyweights. And this fight, to me, no one deserves it more than Alistair Overeem. Give Alistair Overeem John Jones. I mean, will it go similar to Jones and Machida, where he literally just choked him out and he disrespects a legend? I don't know with Overeem.
Overeem's been coming on his last few fights.
Yes.
I'm kind of tired of the Overeem story now. I don't. It's been there. We've been there, done that with Overeem. But he is making a solid comeback.
He's got 2 wins back to back over Walt Harris and Augusto. TKO wins as well. He fought in May. He also fought in September. 25 wins by knockout. He is 40 years old, so of course the doubters and the haters will say, oh, well, Jones fought, an old, washed-up Overeem. To me, he beat Walt Harris in the 2nd round. He beat Augusto in the 5th round. 26 seconds into the 5th round. I mean, that's
realistically,
deep waters.
you have to give John Jones somebody that earns him a title shot for his very next fight.
That is true.
So, because you're not going to give him the title fight right away. You're not just going to put him up against Stipe or Francis, whoever wins that, right? You got to give him a fight before that.
But do you think Dana's crazy enough to do that?
Oh, just to throw him in there against Stipe or throw him in there against Francis?
And build it as a super fight, and then if...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's done it before. He's proved it with Conor, right? I mean, he'll throw Conor in there as a...
To me, it breaks up the...
But we hold on. We know Stipe and Francis is happening.
Yeah.
So for him to get a title fight, it has to be after that one. He's going to want to fight between now and then.
You think
at
so?
some point.
I think
it would be a long time to wait.
Yeah,
because you got to wait for that
summer.
fight to end, and then you got to wait the amount of time till that fighter can fight again.
Yeah.
Or wants to fight again.
That is true.
Stipe doesn't. He takes his time between fights.
Stipe fights like once a year.
Yeah.
Between he's rescuing people and serving his community, which I don't hate him for, but I just wish he was a more active heavyweight.
Mm-hmm. And he might call it, like, you don't see Stipe out doing a bunch of promotions or, doing a bunch of press conferences or anything. Like, the guy goes to a normal job every day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you think
God bless him. I mean.
Do you think he's on the Mount Rushmore for Stipe being one of the greatest heavyweights of all time?
For me, yeah. I mean, he's the greatest, because
so?
he's got
Fedor?
the most.
Everybody talks Fedor.
He's got the most. A little. That's prehistoric.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like in the modern UFC with the way things have changed in the last even 5 years with just guys training and styles. And I mean, look at who Stipe's beat.
Yeah. Well, he beat Alistair Overeem. Yeah. He beat, when you look at, Cormier, he bounced back from the Cormier loss. Mm-hmm. JDS, Verdum, Andre Arlovski, Mark Hunt. I mean, the list goes on. And he didn't just beat them.
Mark Hunt was a beast when he beat him, yeah.
And he was, too, because that was in 2015. We're not talking about the Mark Hunt of now that got beat by a rugby player. We're talking about the Mark Hunt, 2015. I mean, he's got TKO victories over Hunt, Arlovski, Verdum, Santos, Daniel Cormier as well. That, to me, I think he is the greatest of all time. You put, arguably, and I don't even think it's a contest at this point, John Jones is the greatest light heavyweight of all time. Mm-hmm. There's no debate about that. Polish Power and Blachowicz, and he's got some work to do to become that, and we'll see what happens when he faces Izzy. When you look at the greatest light heavyweight of all time versus the greatest heavyweight of all time, that blows records. That is pay-per-views insane.
Right. If Stipe makes it past Francis again.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, Francis is running a 4 KO streak, 4 wins, you know, and they're not against chumps.
So they got to match. They've got to match John Jones against somebody compelling, who he also can beat.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at it, like Francis has beat Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos, Rosenstruck. He's got that wild swinging power.
And his loss to Derek Lewis wasn't even a fight.
And it wasn't.
It was stupid.
Yeah, he lost to Derek Lewis, and then before that, he lost to Stipe in decision. The Derek Lewis fight was arguably one of the most boring fights in UFC history.
I would think the UFC has probably gone through like every website or anything that's ever been posted on and deleted it.
Yeah, they're like, just take it down. It doesn't exist
You can't find
anymore.
that fight anywhere because you shouldn't be allowed to watch it.
And we've seen that before. We witnessed that with the Wonder Boy and Thompson fight, you know, or not Wonder Boy and Thompson, but Wonder Boy and Woodley. Like, it happens. You put two people together that have so much at stake, you know.
Yeah,
to me,
nothing happens.
To me, I think Jones, the more and more I think about it, now that you put it in my brain, I think he does wait. I think he does just say, if he does take a fight in the meantime, there's so much at stake with that.
It could be 9 more months before he fights then.
Yeah. I think,
he was, you know, a guy that liked to be active, you know. He would fight 2 or 3 times, you know, a year or so.
Could you imagine the trash talk, though, if they did give him somebody like Derek Lewis? I would love that.
Oh, yeah.
I would love that.
It'd be great. It would sell a bunch of pay-per-views.
Yeah.
It would, it'd be awesome. That would be a great way for him to break into the heavyweight division.
Really, when I look at anyone in the top 5, Overeem included, Overeem, Lewis, Rosenstruck, Blades, or Nagano, I'd love to see Jones fight any of those. You know, it's weird what John Jones's future holds. I think his future definitely holds him shit-talking DC more. That's just never going to end. But I think he said recently in an interview he has no plans to go back to light heavyweight, which is interesting to me because then it's like that super fight with Izzy never happens. Because Izzy, I don't see Izzy going up to heavyweight.
There's no way.
No.
I don't think so either. He's just too, you know, his build is too slight.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to get there.
But I look at it, and it's like, what happens with John Jones' future? And he's got a lot of catching up to do. I mean, he was out for a bit with those PED violations and this, that, and the third. When I look at it, Jones does need a fight by spring, early summer. But I almost think that he sits and waits and just says, you know what, give me the winner of Stipe and Francis. I don't agree with that personally. I think that's terrible. I think there are guys like Curtis Blades, not Derek Lewis necessarily, that should fight for a title, you know, but there's fighters in there that deserve it more than John Jones.
Yeah, and you know, but there's money involved in having him fight twice for the UFC. So
yeah,
I think the UFC is really going to push him to fight somebody before
that is
the winner.
true. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, yoked out John Jones in heavyweight is going to be a problem. I know that he's been training a lot with Flintstone Clarissa Shields, and that's been fun to watch too. I think the media's interpretation, myself included, of John Jones and who he actually is as a person are two completely different things. I think seeing him in person and meeting him and having a conversation, he's probably a great guy.
Yeah,
but it's like those little
He's got to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Could you imagine? Could you imagine drinking with John Jones, just doing lines of coke?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the rivalry with DC never ends. But like you said, like he's got to put his phone down. You got to move on. We're gonna move on to talking about the cards that are coming up and
talk shit about Francis, John. Come on.
Yeah. Oh God, please do it. Yeah, because Francis would be like,
or Greg Hardy.
I would destroy you. Like he has that accent. And what did Dana say? Dana said it, and he proved it at UFC 218 in Detroit that he hits the equivalent of a Ford Taurus, and he did that to Alistair Overeem. Yeah. I mean, I was there live for it.
Yep.
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it now. It was one of the greatest moments of my life, and I was just in the stands watching. Like
Overeem was so starched, like
it was bad.
It happens.
Bad. Yeah. So coming up, obviously we've got some big cards to talk about. I'm going to give you some fights.
Okay.
And I want your just early predictions. As it gets closer, we'll kind of hone in on it. But I know that you're a big betting guy. And I know,
do.
I know that you're a big, you like to decide who you're picking early. So let's go through. I'm going to give you some fights, some hot takes, and you let me know. Of course, January 16th, Flash Form, Max Holloway, 21-6, versus Calvin Kattar, 22-4. They are headlining UFC Fight Night. It's the kickoff to the triple header in Abu Dhabi. Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar, who do you got?
This is an easy one for me. Max.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh, that hurts my heart.
He's lost and lost. He's due. If Max doesn't win this one, he becomes another Cowboy.